You are watching On Demand. Please do not try to vote or enter any competition or other interactivity in this programme, as it may not count and you may still be charged.
Today on your Loose Women Live, it's Christine Lampard, Brenda Edwards, Colleen Nolan, and Janet Street Porter.
Hello and welcome to your Wednesday Loose Women. Coming up, our thoughts on the heartbreaking news today that Fiona Phillips has been diagnosed with Alzheimer's. But would you want to know if you were going to develop the disease? Our views in just a moment on that. Also, with something very special this afternoon, we're celebrating one of the most iconic loose women ever.
Anyone who agrees to be filmed in their house in their underpants is in no position to criticise...
we had trouble getting him to put his underpants on.
As our Janet marks an incredible 50 years in broadcasting, we're heading into uncharted territory and to the parts of Janet's life she's never really talked about, from life as a big telly boss, the moment in her career she thought she'd failed, and even into her very close relationship with Sir Elton. I mean, there's a few name drops in there today, isn't there, Janet?
Yes. I hope I'm not going to be too embarrassed.
Don't go suddenly all shy and cry on it. 50 years in broadcasting.
When have you ever seen her that meek?
Never.
I'm not going to be
never. It's all in act,
You are.
folks.
Is that going to be cringy?
Oh, it is.
Oh, don't.
It's not. It's a lovely, lovely chat, and we are very much
Looking
looking forward to it. First, though, presenter and friend of this show, Fiona Phillips, has shared the sad news that she's been diagnosed with Alzheimer's at the age of 62. She's part of a pioneering trial for a drug which doctors hope may help or even reverse the condition. And Fiona, who has long campaigned for awareness of the disease after both her mum and dad suffered with it, is determined to still live a happy and fulfilling life.
It's absolutely decimated my mum, my dad, my Uncle Barry. I mean, it just goes on and on. It's just... And they always used to say to me, it's not hereditary. Well, there's something going on. I don't want to not work. I don't want to be sitting around playing around with my fingers or, you know...
Yeah, because you've always worked so hard, haven't you? You're such a worker.
Yeah, and I just like, doing things.
Well, we're all thinking of Fiona today. We were just saying we were all really upset today reading that news,
shocked.
weren't we?
Yeah, I mean, it was only recently I was saying, it was last week, it's so weird, and I was like, where's Fiona Phillips? I love Fiona Phillips, like, where's she gone, you know? And then that came out today, and I was so shocked, and it hit me like a ton of bricks. Obviously, I've experienced the whole Alzheimer's disease with my mum. I know how, as a family, how traumatic that was for us, still is, to a degree. But you kind of, I don't mean you expect it, but it's less shocking. If someone's late 70s, 80s, you always assume, even myself, I think I'll probably have some form of dementia. But, you know, she's 61 and she's just still so full of life, and she is, you know, still, thank God, being very positive about it and all of those things, and she's starting the trial. But, you know, of everything I've gone through with my family, and I've gone through a lot of cancer and Alzheimer's and stuff, I'd say that Alzheimer's for me, as a family member, was the worst to watch someone you love go through. So I feel for her family as well, you know, husband, kids.
It's a diagnosis for everyone.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. But hopefully these drugs that she's trying will, you know, either slow it down or reverse it, like she said, and that's brilliant, you know. But it's really shocked, and I actually could have sobbed when I heard her talk about it, because, you know, selfishly, it brings everything back as well that you've gone through. So I just want to send her all up, you know, all our love, really.
Yeah,
and
absolutely. she's a wonderful journalist, still is.
Incredible,
she's still wanting to work. She's very active,
amazing.
obviously, like we've said there. I loved watching Fiona Phillips in the morning. She is like one of the best female broadcasters.
And she's always so bubbly, still is.
Oh,
bubbly
she's brilliant, and she's
positive.
still got that spark. And I think it's probably getting over the initial shock of this diagnosis. But she is a fighter, and and actually, in many ways, when you think about what Dame Deborah James managed to do for bowel cancer, which we've all now, we're much more aware of that. She did incredible work. And I think Fiona Phillips certainly has the power behind what she's done in her career to be very vocal about an incredible, you know, terrible disease and to draw so much light to it. I think she could really...
I think she could make a big
throw her efforts
difference.
into something.
Yeah, because
make a huge
until it
difference.
affected my mum, typically, as a human, I never thought about Alzheimer's. I thought it was an old person. Just old people get dementia, that's the way it is. Never thought about it. And I think now to open it up that it doesn't discriminate as in age-wise and all of that. And I think it's good that she's...
I mean, people who've been diagnosed with it have gone on working. And people like Terry Pratchett, for example,
writing books and
wrote a whole book and, you know, has been very, very vocal about it. What it brings home to me is that everybody I know knows someone very close to them who's got it, who's been diagnosed with it, and it's not that far away. So what, at my age, 76, cancer and Alzheimer's are the two things that you think about and worry about all the time, the two big health scares. And so what I have decided to do is just not think about it, to focus on each day and be positive, and also to try and eat more healthily, drink slightly less, exercise a little bit more. Obviously, you read in the papers every day all these plans you should be following, which could take over your whole life. I think you've got to be sensible, but most importantly, you've got to maintain a positive attitude, I think.
Yeah, it's very true.
I obviously agree with everything everybody said, and especially with what Janet's saying. My whole thing is about positivity and trying to stay focused and trying not to focus on the negatives. And, you know, I think it must have been obviously hard for her to tell her children. She only told them recently. And it's whatever works for you, I guess. If it was me, well, with my case, when I had the cancer, it was important for me to tell my children because I wanted to prepare them mentally. But I think it's an amazing thing what she's doing, speaking out about it, and it's all in her own time. You know, that's what's important.
It's when she did mention there, interestingly, the potential link, whether it's a hereditary issue or not. Would you want to know? You know, that's the question, isn't it?
No, it's the one thing I've always said. You know, because there was or still is, a test that you can take, I think, to see if you carry that gene. You know, if it was a disease where they said, yes, but we can cure it. If we find it, we can cure it, but they haven't got to that stage yet. They can slow it down in the hope they might reverse it, but none of that. And it would just ruin the rest of my life if I knew now that I might get it in 20 years. I would just dread it my whole life. And it's my biggest fear in life since I've seen my mum go through it. It's something I fear every single day, every single time I forget something, which now in menopause you do anyway.
Yes, and that's what
every single time I forget a name or I forget where I've put something, this fear overtakes me of, oh my God, I've got it. I've definitely got it, you know. And so I wouldn't like to know.
No,
I just don't. I think it would ruin my life.
It is. It's a personal thing, of course. But no, I think I'd be with you, Colleen. But look, as we say, Fiona, we're sending you all of our love, indeed, all of the family, and wishing you all of the very best. And hopefully we'll get to see you very soon as well. So yes, Fiona Phillips was a big story today. All of this reminds us, of course, just how important our health is, and today is the 75th birthday of the NHS. Its original mission statement was to provide you with all medical, dental and nursing care. Everyone, rich or poor, man, woman or child, can use it, and there are no charges. It was a big statement. It meant a lot to a lot of us, all of us, in fact, Janet, at that stage. Where are we at this stage? Because sadly, in recent weeks and months and years, we've heard an awful lot of negative stories. And we sometimes forget about the wonderful people that are still keeping that NHS.
Yeah, I want to give a
working.
big shout out to all the people who work for the National Health Service, because without exception, they are fantastic. They're doing a fantastic job. But The circumstances under which they're working couldn't be more grim. It doesn't matter if the current health secretary says it will still be here in 75 years. I personally don't think it can survive in the form that it is in now. I think the Blair Foundation and the former health secretary, Sajid Javid, both have said that National Health Service needs radical change. And I think one of the changes must be that going forward, people must be prepared to be means tested for certain services. And also private companies should be allowed into the National Health Service to take over some things. At the moment, waiting lists for things like cataracts or someone I know is waiting for a scan for terribly crippling fibroids, things like that really ruin your life. The waiting lists are so long that the quality of life you've got is so
But I don't agree, though, Janet, because I don't agree that if you can pay for it, you're probably going to get the same specialist anyway if you can pay for it. So then you get your cataracts done before somebody who can't afford to pay for it. You know, it's meant to be, as it said at the beginning, for everyone, rich, poor, man, woman or child. I think what needs to be looked at is the management of it. I think the management needs... Well, I won't say what I think they need. But, you know, some of the things I've heard from friends that work in the NHS, some of these companies they get in to change things like light bulbs, they're getting charged £66 for one light bulb. I mean, why is no one going, OK, we need to look at this because it's not working financially? But I think it comes from management. We are all living much longer lives. There are more treatments out there now that are helping people live longer. And therefore... You know, so they need to look at that. So
but
that's why the waiting
people are
list...
prepared to pay more money for the National Health Service...
But why should it all come down to the public?
Well, they're the customers. Unfortunately, I agree completely that the management structure is top-heavy. All I'm saying about paying for some services, that it would remove the pressure on waiting lists, it would cut them down. If you could get your cataract operation done, if they did more deals, and if you could put in some money and get it done quicker and reduce the pressure on the waiting list,
but we all pay money into the NHS.
I agree.
We all pay our taxes.
I think this is desperate times, though.
Yeah. But having said that, I have lots of friends that work in the NHS, and in spite of all of the things we've talked about, and they're still very proud to work for the NHS, and they love what they do. And like we say, we're very, very grateful that they're there, because it's the first call you make if you need them, isn't it?
Get all the stick as well.
Yeah, exactly,
you know,
and they should.
Amazing.
So yes, we're celebrating you today. Still to come, it's the long-awaited part 2 of our JSP's life story. Today we're talking about the topics she's never really covered before, such as Janet being the media mogul. Did you know that? Oh, she is and was very much a big player. We're discussing the interviews she'd rather forget and the real story behind her years at the top. Janet's life before Loose, coming up next. Welcome back. Still to come.
He said I was the same age as his mother, and I went, yes.
How old are you? Don't mind
61.
Are you? You look fantastic.
She became officially loose 12 years ago, but was a guest on the show long before that. Don't miss the unheard stories and revelations from our Janet's colourful life as we mark her 50 years in broadcasting. Competition time first, and we have the ultimate cash prize giveaway. Only £250,000, ladies and gentlemen. And it's very exciting because Kate is actually in the studio today. Hello, you look very serious. It's a lot of cash. It's serious talk.
It is. I'm taking my role very seriously today. I know normally I'm in and around somewhere in the UK or abroad, but today I'm here, and these aren't my personal security guards. I'm not Beyonce. This is Jimmy, this is Calvin, and they are in charge of the special cargo right behind me. Step away from it. If you come close, they will not hesitate to throw you out the building. If you wondered what £250,000 in cash looked like, this is it. Inside this box, it's hard to believe, it's £250,000 in real £10 notes. There's what? Smell it, Janet. Smell it. It smells, you know when you just got money in your hand, it smells. Smell it, Calvin. I've been trying to make him laugh all day, and he won't budge. I'm going to tell you a joke, ready? Why did the woman put her money in the freezer? Because she wanted some cold, hard cash. It's not breaking. It's not breaking. Anyway, this is a... See? It's funny. It's funny. All right, £250,000 in tax-free cash. Can you imagine your life being £250,000 richer? The places you go, the people you could treat, the fun you could have. But you've got to be in it to win it. Here's the details to enter our competition.
For another chance to win, text cash to 82248. Text costs £2 plus one standard network rate message. Go to the website. Entries cost £2. Call 09068 782248. Calls cost £2 plus your network access charge. Or post your name and phone number to Cash 27, PO Box 7558, Derby DE10NQ. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 4 p.m. on Friday the 7th of July. Good luck!
Thank you very much indeed, Kate. Now it's time for the return of one of our most popular series ever on Loose Women. In Life Before Loose, we explore the pasts of your favourite panellists. And today, it's part 2 of the life story of someone whose former colleagues have dubbed clever, original, brave and, well, difficult. But for the right reasons. And she's been in broadcasting for 50 years. It could only be our Janet. Now, before we open up a brand new chapter, here's what happened in the first part of Life Before Loose back in 2020.
It is time for Janet's Life Before Loose.
My dad wanted a boy and he got me. My mum gave me a dolly, but I ripped the arms off.
You had a sister as well, Pat, a younger sister. What was your relationship like with her?
Well, we didn't get on because she was born. I married Tim.
Look at that dress.
Yeah.
Wow.
It's a bit of a clown's outfit, though. Honestly, when I arrived at work at the Daily Mail 1969, my outfit for going to work was a pair of red knitted shorts, green tights, high-heeled green suede shoes and a green fur jacket.
Well, with those legs, you can get away with it.
When my sister got lung cancer, I mean, you know, she was a really heavy smoker and, you know, from the minute she was ill, it was not a good prognosis. But then when she got brain cancer, it was devastating. And then when my mother got quite demanding in later life, my sister and I did bring us together because we go, well, we never guess what she's done now. When I started at college, I was engaged to an architect called Rex, and then within 6 months, I'd met Tim Street Porter, who suggested that I dump Rex, so I cancelled my wedding. People did find my voice on the radio very, very, very annoying. I can take a joke, and I don't mind people making a joke about my voice. I'm not so keen when they come up and say, my daughter does a good impression of you.
Really good, Janet. And that was only scratching the surface because here we are with part 2. You know you've had a life and a career when they make a part 2 of Life Before Loose.
We all got
here
part
we are.
1.
I haven't had a part 1 yet.
No, I didn't even have a part.
Oh, grand. It's okay. But Janet, it's even just watching that back, and I know so much of your story, but hearing you tell it brings it all back to life again. And we'd like to sort of pick up, you sort of went through the you know, your earlier years there and into the 60s and everything else, but if we then pick up now from about mid-70s, 74, 75, and that was your real breakthrough into television with a huge show called The London Weekend Show.
Yeah, it was a really important show for young people. And it was the first show like it on television. It was on Sunday lunchtimes. And I still have people now come up to me and say, I was really little and I turned the telly on. And there you were on Sunday lunchtimes,
But it was a show that covered everything. And actually, it probably was the foundation of many, many shows that came after it, in fact, because it was groundbreaking. Like, your memories of that and being part of that, it was like a movement, really.
Yeah, I think we tackled everything from teenage lesbians to army young people who were army deserters. We did a lot of music programmes. I mean, I did loads of filming with the Clash, because it was punk. I mean, what was not to like about it? I got to film the Clash, Johnny Rotten. I did David Bowie around that time. I did loads and loads of music, documentaries about music on that show. Yeah, it was a really good show to do. And it eventually won an award, but it took like 3 years of doing it.
Yeah, but it was something we were very proud of. And you say a lot of big names in there. In fact, we have got a little clip of you with Johnny Rotten, actually, just to remind ourselves of how good it was.
What's punk all about? We went to a gig by the Sex Pistols just off Leicester Square to see what a punk rock evening was like. We're so pretty, oh, so pretty. What musicians do you write? I mean, who do you think is a good singer?
I don't. I don't have any heroes. They're all useless.
You've got to love him, haven't you?
I was going to say, you got on well with him, didn't you?
Yeah.
Very similar.
From the minute I met Johnny Rotten, John Lydon, we got on really, really well. And off camera, you know, when he wasn't on stage, well, he's still the same. He's highly intelligent, reads The Economist, likes gardening, but, you know, there's two sides to Johnny Rotten.
Yeah. Again, so much to touch on, Janet, but there was a sideways shift at that point then, because you actually, as much as you were loving being in front of the camera, you wanted to get behind it and to become a producer, and that then happened.
Yeah, I think I presented a lot of shows for ITV around that time, the end of the 70s into the early 80s. I did late-night talk shows. I even did an all-woman talk show called The Cat Show.
How did that turn out?
Well, I loved it, but it was a panel of women, right? And the audience were all women. And the reviews said it was the worst show ever. What a sexist idea. I'm sorry, it was just ahead of its time.
Absolutely. And that's when you look at so much of your career. You really were in the middle of these, it was movement television.
Yeah, but at the same time, I was getting bored with being on camera, and I was starting to write formats for shows because I basically wanted to be a producer, because that's where the real power is.
If you had the chance to do it all again, what advice would you give to your younger yourself?
You can do anything. You can.
Because it was really, Janet, because you weren't scared of being different. That was the big. That was your it was a golden card for you in many respects, because everyone else fitted into a certain stereotype.
Well, I thought they were wrong and I was right, and I still think that.
She's still like that.
She's very much like that. And we've got loads more untold stories as we uncover Janet's life before Loose. We're going back to the 90s for a tour around her famous extrovert house in London and find out what happened when Miss Street Porter took on the job she never thought she'd do. Teach, everybody. See you in a bit. Welcome back to Loose Women, where we're digging deeper than ever before into Janet's 50 years in broadcasting, with chapters from her life that she's never really told us before, funny enough. I thought there was something coming up there. Anyway, I was waiting for it there too. Anyway, just before the break, we were saying about how there was this side shift into producing, Janet, and you went into producing this huge show, Network 7, BAFTA award winning, I would say. Originality.
Yeah, I mean, before that, I did a series for ITV called 20th Century Box, and Danny Baker presented that. And then I co-wrote this with Jane Hewland, this big 2-hour show that ran for 26 weeks, 2 hours live every Sunday. So it was like a huge project, and it took over my life for 2 or 3 years. So we had the year of writing it, then we chose all the people to present it, and all the people that were on it have gone on and become incredibly successful and formed their own production companies. But it was a groundbreaking show, and I'm really proud that I did it for Channel 4. Yeah, but I realised then that I wanted to be not just a producer, but I wanted to be like an executive producer. I wanted to be the big boss. So after that, I got headhunted by the BBC, and they brought me in to make programmes like that for them. But they forgot to tell anyone in the building. So when I arrived at the BBC, in this very building where we are now, nobody got me an office. So I had a big title, big pay packet, no office. So I was put in the Jackanory library while they thought what to do with me.
The thing that I remember about you through everything, and when I look back, is your really unique fashion style. You always stood out wherever you went. You were never in the same outfit twice.
Well, I think it's because I started out in journalism as a fashion editor. I wrote, first of all, about interiors, and then when I started on the Daily Mail in 1969, I was deputy fashion editor, and then I was on the Evening Standard. And I just love fashion. And being 6 foot tall, you can't really miss me. And I was pretty thin. I mean, I made no attempt to diet, I can assure you. But I was luckily looked good in, you know, quite high fashion clothes. Although I look back now, because so much of what I've worn has been photographed, and, you know, some of it is so out there. I used to go to work at the BBC in Doc Martens in a really, really short skirt with jackets with huge lapels and big shoulder pads. So I really did that power dressing.
We've got a great clip. This programme is called What is Taste? And this is you talking about style, funny enough.
Has it ever been intimated to you that you and the kind of clothes that you wear and the kind of effect that you make is in bad taste?
I wouldn't notice. I mean, I think I'm normal. I feel sorry for people who are preoccupied with things like that. I mean, I just get up in the morning and put on whatever comes to hand. So if people are going to lose sleep about whether they're in good taste or bad taste, there's far more important things to think about than that.
Well, she got her comeuppance, didn't she? And then a few years later, I did a show with Sue Lawley on the BBC with Vivienne Westwood, the late Vivienne Westwood, and Sue Lawley started trashing Vivienne Westwood, and I turned around and I went, excuse me, she's a genius. This woman is a brilliant, brilliant fashion designer whose clothes have gone around the world. So I still feel really passionately about fashion.
I think that's what's interesting. You talk about that sort of stepping into the BBC and there's no office. But here you were a standout person in your own right. You were completely doing your own thing.
Well, I started empire building. So I was at the BBC for 8 or 9 years, and I started with a couple of people and a PA, and I ended up with 350 people and a budget of 40 million. So I was a force to be reckoned with, but to do that in that male-dominated world, you have to be ruthless. You're not nice, you're nasty. I mean, that's a sad fact of life.
Oh, I don't like that.
Janet, I mean, I wouldn't say that you're a nasty person.
You haven't seen it, Brenda. If you and I were competing for a budget...
Well, I know what you're like with the competition, because we've had our tomato wars, but as a boss, I understand what you're saying. You have to be harsh but fair, but I don't think... You've said that you felt intimidated when you were in the industry, so what have you done to change that so that it makes a difference?
Well, when I worked at the BBC, I found that there was a kind of male club, that they'd all been to the same kind of universities, and they all talked about either soccer or, you know, they talked about sport together, and, you know, you do feel a bit excluded, but you just got to carry on and push and be convinced that you're right. And when I look back at my letters and memos and, you know, things I wrote to the bosses in those days, I wasn't shy of coming forward with my opinions. And that's the advice I would give now to anybody who wants to get on. Don't be shy, because no one's going to notice you if you're being shy.
At what point do you... Because what I'm always amazed about, like, because you did get a lot of knockbacks and certain things that you started did fail. Oh, yeah. But you still kept going.
I made some rubbish shows. But anybody would, because I made in total well over 35 or 40 series. So, yeah, some of them are rubbish.
What gave you the confidence, and this is what I want to get off you, is what gives you the confidence to not believe when people are going, well, it was rubbish and we don't want to use you again and you're rubbish or whatever. You just went ahead and proved them all wrong. You still had that strength.
I think I do. I have a lot of confidence in my own ideas, and that's because I'd always done a lot of work beforehand, and I felt that my ideas were grounded in research, and I felt the market or whatever, the audience was ready for it. And I also I've made a conscious effort all my life not to only be friends with my own age group, to seek out friends in all different walks of life and in all different age groups, because if you are only friends with, close friends with people your age, your brain starts to narrow down and your taste definitely shrinks. So when you're creating television programmes, you've always got to think about who's at home watching this. I want to entertain them, surprise them, tell them something they don't know already. And I still think like that now, and that's why I'm still working in television, because I still enjoy it. And if you don't enjoy it, then you shouldn't be in it.
Yeah, so that's very, very wise. But we were talking about the sort of nutbacks, and you've spoken about this before, that you became involved then with a cable channel called Live TV, and to this day, I think you still feel like a little bit stung by it, I guess.
Yeah.
What are your memories of that?
Well, I went to Live TV because I didn't get a job at the BBC. I applied to be a channel controller, at BBC Two, and I didn't get the job. So in a fit of pique, I took this job setting up a cable channel for the Mirror Group. And what was exciting about it was that I could build a TV station from scratch. So in Canary Wharf, I was given an empty floor, the 25th floor of the building. I could design the whole concept from scratch. And I built this huge studio and I staffed it and I wrote all the formats for the programmes. The downside was that the people I was working with were basically newspaper publishers, not TV broadcasters. So there were huge rows. And also the technology that I was using wasn't up to scratch, and it was really let me down. But I gave loads of people their first jobs, like Claudia Winkleman, she was a runner. Julia Bradbury, Bethany Hughes, that loads of people started off on Live TV.
Yeah, and they remember you for. We actually have a clip of your time during Live TV as well.
Tortured time.
People might say, oh, but it's only a cable channel. Well, that's the problem with being a perfectionist. A bit like an illness, isn't it? I feel depressed. I feel really depressed about it. I hate it when things don't work.
Don't you feel...
No, I'm a perfectionist. It's got to work. I was sold this technology. It's got to work.
And Janet, interestingly, though, I think that says so much about you.
Well,
that clip there, it says so much, doesn't it?
Yeah,
and why you have been successful.
But you still, how did you get back from that? From feeling...
Well, what I did was I made a speech at the Edinburgh Festival about what's wrong with television. I said it was run by the M people, male, middle-aged and middle class. Not surprisingly, I got the boot after that. But after that, I came back. I did another talk show for Channel 4. And, yeah, I just carried on working.
Well, aside from constantly working, you've got lots of other passions, and we know that, Janet, but you love interior design.
Yeah.
You love your home,
yeah,
you love
well, I
creating.
trained originally as an architect. Well, I didn't complete my training, but I've always wanted to design my own house, and then I realised that if I designed it, it wouldn't stand up and poo would come out of the taps because I can't do plumbing. So I got my best friend at college to design my house. I managed to buy a bomb site in central London, miraculously, in Clerkenwell, and it took 2 years to find a little bit of land to build on.
Well, we actually have a tour of this very house, and we haven't seen it. I can't wait to see it. This is the house she's talking about.
The point of the living room is really just to create a space that's very comfortable. The stairs seem like a Mexican house. They seem much more like an adobe house. And the front door is made of big wooden timbers, and it's got a rope handle, and I asked for a spy hole so I could look at people. Only trouble is that what's the right height for me is about a foot higher than anybody else standing outside.
The garage door was one sheet of steel that was on a pulley system, so it was like a razor blade coming down. I lived in fear it would slice the car in half.
Never mind the neighbours. Yeah.
Well, that house was, it was so hard to get it built. We had to fight, you know, all these different organisations who didn't want to see it and said it was ugly. And then it got built after all these fights, and a couple of years ago, listed by English Heritage.
My goodness.
One of the few houses, postmodern houses, to be in London, to be listed. So it's got a preservation order on it now. So I've had the last laugh and I don't live in it.
You must feel really proud of that, though, because it was a passion project.
Yeah, I put my own blue plaque on the front. No one was going to give me a blue plaque, so it's got a triangular plaque with me, the builder and the architect's names on it, because we were all at college together.
Oh, Janet, that is so you and so brilliant. My goodness. Loads still to come. We're taking a walk with Janet and close friend Elton for an insight into their very unique bond. And she'd previously called the show Brain Rotting. So why did our Janet sign up for a stint in the I'm a Celebrity jungle? Oh, yes. More untold stories coming up next. See you in a bit. Hello again, still to come, more unheard stories from Janet's incredible 50 years in broadcasting. Before that, though, competition time, and Kate is back. She's got some very special cargo in the studio. Very special.
I know, indeed. It's very special. That's why I'm flanked by 2 security guards. £250,000 in tenors is inside this box. And on Friday at 4 p.m, lines close for your chance to win the lot. Imagine winning £250,000. Oh, my goodness me. You don't have long to enter our competition. Think of all the places you could go. Janet, catch. Oh. Janet, smell it. Smell my cash. It smells adorable. No, she's not interested. She's got too much money. Doesn't it smell amazing, Pauline? Doesn't it smell incredible? Just think of what you could buy with £250,000. You could buy a boat, a car, you could go on holidays, treat the family, go to places you've never been before. The quickest way to enter is by text, and lines close Friday at 4 p.m. Here are all the details you need to enter our fabulous, biggest and best competition of the year so far. One of them.
For another chance to win, text cash to 82248. Text costs £2 plus 1 standard network rate message. Go to the website, entries cost £2. Call 09068 782248. Calls cost £2 plus your network access charge. Or post your name and phone number to Cash 27, PO Box 7558, Derby DE1 0NQ. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 4 p.m. on Friday the 7th of July. Good luck!
Thank you very much, Kate. Back to Janet now. More of you, Janet. We've been talking about all of these years behind the scenes. You're a mover, you're a shaker, you're changing the face of television on many different levels, Janet. But you did fancy getting back in front of the camera. And I'm going to take you now to 2005 with a series, So You Think You Can. And in this series, we saw you, something we never thought we'd see you do, and that is teach. How did that come about? Because we know you love children.
Yeah, because before that, I'd been the editor of The Independent on Sunday. So I'd actually gone from being a TV executive to a newspaper editor of a serious newspaper. And after I'd kind of done a few years of that, I decided to go back on telly because that took over my life. And I decided to do jobs that I could write about as well. Because I was obviously writing a newspaper column at the same time. So I took on this challenge to be a teacher in a primary school outside Cambridge and teach the national curriculum to 9-year-olds. Well, it was a nightmare.
What, for you or them?
Yeah, I think both, because obviously you can't use physical restraint. You've got to watch your language. And I couldn't understand the national curriculum.
Well, let's just have a look at how relaxed she was in the classroom.
Hello.
Hello. Hello. Let's have a bigger hello. Hello. So what I might forget is your names. So instead of getting cross with me, just say, she's old, she's only here for 2 weeks, and I'm trying very hard.
Oh, you see, that was you being very endearing.
I had identical twins in that class and they wouldn't let them wear name badges. And the other thing is, when I was at school, everybody faced the front and you had a pen or a pencil, no messing about. In the intervening half a century, they sit round tables, so they're not even looking at you, and they're allowed choice. So they didn't have pens, pencils.
Oh, God forbid we've moved on from those days. I've got to ask you before we run out of time at all, you've got some incredible, genuine friendships with massive celebrity people, Elton John, Pet Shop Boys. How did they come about? Because I struggle to get friendship with the local butcher.
Well, the Pet Shop Boys started when I was doing a Saturday morning kids show, and it was live from Newcastle, and they were on it, and I had a section that said, the pop stars that were on the show had to put a paper bag on their heads and the kids identified them, and they were flatly refused, which was fantastic. And out of that, you know, we just became friends, and Chris Lowe from Pet Shop Boys studied architecture like me. Elton, I was presenting the London Weekend show, and I'd done all these films about punk, and this phone rang one Sunday lunchtime, and my husband came back and he went, Elton's on the phone, and I just thought it was a joke. And it was Elton John, and he'd got my number, and he said, I just love the films you're making. I love the stuff you've done about punk and the Clash. It's made me feel 100 years old, and it's just stuff I find so exciting. And I went to his house for lunch, and we became, that was 1976, and we've been friends ever since. Yeah.
You managed to convince him to go walking with you, didn't you?
Oh, yeah, I did a series where I walked from Edinburgh. That's another example of me having a mad idea, and then I had to carry it out. I said I'd walk from London to Edinburgh, Edinburgh to London in a straight line. And Elton went, well, I'll walk a bit of it with you. And he is, of course, a very, very keen tennis player, but not a keen walker. I think the clip with him is really funny.
Yeah, we've got it.
Don't you like getting older?
I like it now. I don't like your body dropping a bit.
Right.
Perhaps that's another reason why I do all the walking, is to try and, you know, arrest all that. And then I spend hours in the mirror wondering about my eyelids.
You look all right for your age, dear.
I don't mind getting old.
No, but I think you get a much more different... Your perspective on things changes, and you get much more opinionated. But I like people with an opinion, but I think it's much more clearer when you're older. I mean...
I think you're nicer than me, basically.
Well, I think there's so much crap and mediocrity about, and you can say it when you're 50.
He's even more opinionated now. He'll still ring me up and say, have you seen X, Y, and Z? Oh, and never rant at me.
Speaking of being opinionated, you said that celebrity, you wouldn't do Celebrity Get Me Out of Here because it's brain rot. Why did you end up doing it in 2006?
I thought that I was one of the first journalists they had on the show, and I liked the idea of being like a spy in the camp. And they let me write a diary while I was in there. I was constantly going to the whatever it's called, the diary, the secret room where you go and confess everything. And I had my diary hidden in there. Anyway, the first trial I did was with the snakes. And because I did really, really well, I didn't have to do any really horrible trials after that.
You were very, very lucky.
I was on with Paul Burrell.
But again, going back to just you being you, Janet, you were never scared to say yes. That's, I think, is the essence of your whole...
why am I holding out? I'm going to learn something.
Well, it's why we love you, Janet Street Porter. It's all we've got time for. Thank you so much, Janet. King of Hollywood Gossip, Ross King will be here, and Angela Rayner as well. See you tomorrow. Thanks very much. Bye-bye.